Hey everyone, it's Kenji. We're gonna make some spinach soup. So this is actually a spinach velouté, which is a French word for, it's basically it's a soup that's made by thickening a stock. In this case, it's chicken stock that I made from fried chicken bones that I had left over from the other day. And then we're using some spinach in there, along with some other vegetables and stuff. Super simple. I'm gonna start by melting a little butter. A couple tablespoons of butter, a little olive oil, in a saucepan. Okay, and then we're gonna start sweating some of our aromatics out. So I set the spinach aside for now. So I'm gonna do a leek here. So leeks, they grow in this kind of sandy soil so they can get sand in them as they're growing. So you always want to take your leek, cut the top and bottom off, split it in half lengthwise. I take the very outer layer off and discard, and then the rest, so you can already see, you see how in there that's like this sandy soil I'm talking about. You want to take the rest in your sink, just run it under cold water and separate the edges like that. Okay. And that'll just rinse out any of that sandy soil. So you don't want gritty soup, right? Nobody likes gritty soup. Gritty war movies, gritty cowboy movies, but not gritty soup. All right, now I'm gonna split it lengthwise again. This soup's all gonna be pureed, so it doesn't really matter how precise you are with your cuts. You just want it to be roughly the same size, roughly about that big. All right, I got this half an onion that I had in the fridge. It's a white onion. I could have used a yellow onion. Doesn't really matter. I'm using the white onion because I just had it in my fridge. The only thing I would avoid is using like a red onion, something that's going to turn the soup a different color. So take the skin off, cut down, cut across. Okay, there's all my discard pile. Where's my bin? Here's my bin. All right, where you been? Okay, so I'm gonna get my leeks and onions into my pan. I'm just gonna soften these a little. All right, and meanwhile, I'm gonna give that a pinch of salt, get some of that moisture out of there, help it sweat down. And the goal here is really just to soften it without browning. Oh man, it already smells good. I love the smell of onions in butter. It's one of my favorite smells in the world. All right, so now we're gonna rinse our spinach off. Now this is a kind of soup base that doesn't have to be spinach, and this spinach has seen better days, but again, we're gonna puree it, so it doesn't matter all that much. Like I pulled off the really mushy parts, but if your leaves are a little frazzled and frayed, that's okay. They're still gonna be just fine in this soup. So you don't really have to use spinach. If you wanted, you could do this with like watercress. This would make a great watercress soup. It would make a great romaine lettuce soup. It would make great escarole soup. Any kind of green that you want. It could also be something like broccoli. A broccoli velouté or an asparagus velouté are delicious. And I would do these essentially the same way. I'm doing a sort of shortcut version. If I was doing this in a restaurant, I would blanch my vegetables separately from the velouté base in order to sort of get a brighter color and really have a little bit more control. But in this case, we're going to do it all in one pot because I don't need to impress anyone at home. I just need to make something that tastes good and people like. And not even people, I just need to make something that tastes good and I like and my family likes, which I'm pretty sure is going to happen. Spinach soup is one of my wife's favorites. Okay, getting nice and soft. Give that spinach a few little pushes just to get any dirt off here. Spinach you buy at the supermarket these days is generally pretty clean though. Get rid of that guy. Okay. Oops, I'm gonna rinse off this parsley and get in there too. So I'm just adding some parsley to the soup itself, to the puree, just for some extra flavor. Don't have to do parsley, don't have to do any herbs at all actually. I'm just doing this because I have a whole bunch of parsley, pun intended, in the fridge. And again, this, we're pureeing this, so I don't mind if I get a few little stems in there. It's all gonna end up in the mix anyway. Maybe get rid of these real big stems. Okay. All right. Spinach, done. Now I'm just going to kind of gather it up. Do a bunch. Give it a real rough chop. Real rough. All right. Now we're going to move on to this garlic. I usually add my garlic, if I'm cooking onions and garlic together, I'll cook the onions first for a little while before adding the garlic, just so that the garlic flavor stays a little brighter, and so that we don't accidentally burn the garlic, because garlic tends to burn a little more quickly than onions do. Again, no need to be super fine on this garlic. Just a real rough smash and chop. Okay, so I can see it's starting to brown just a tiny bit, which is not what I want. So basically, if it's starting to brown like that, that means most of the moisture has been driven off these vegetables. They've sweated out. I could go a little, again, if I was doing this at a restaurant, I would go even slower and more gentle than this, so that they really have a chance to break down without getting any of that browning, which is going to make them sweet, which is not really what I want in this soup. But at home, I'm just going to do it sort of over moderate heat, so I can do it quick and easy, because I got stuff to do with my day. All right. So for our velouté base, thickened stock. So that means we're going to make a roux. We already have our butter in there. I'm adding some flour, that was maybe 3 tablespoons of flour. I'm doing 3 tablespoons of flour for 4 cups of chicken stock. So 1 quart of chicken stock. I'm just going to let this cook just a little bit. We don't want it to get nutty or brown or anything. At least I don't. I just want to let it cook just until that raw flavor is gone from it. Okay. Just like that. Okay. Now I'm using this, like I said, I had some leftover fried chicken. Or was it rotisserie chicken? I can't remember. It was some kind of leftover chicken bones that we ate, and then I took the carcass. I made this chicken stock. This chicken stock, I flavored it with some scallions and ginger. You can go more classic European for a recipe like this with, mirepoix, onions, carrots, celery. But first, I decided to go with scallions and ginger for this because I had scallions and ginger in my fridge. I think the ginger will actually taste quite nice with the spinach here. All right, we're just going to stir it in. Now, according to Chef John, you can just dump this all in and it will still come out smooth. And I'm sure he's right. I've just never done it that way, but you can. You are, after all, the, I don't know, what are you? You're the Tina Fey of your velouté. You're the Timothy McVeigh of your velouté. All right. So we're going to bring that to a simmer. Because this is a starch thickened broth, you always want to bring it to a simmer because starches, they don't really achieve their full thickening power until they've come to a boil, whether it's cornstarch or flour or whatever. I'm going to add some black pepper in there too because I like black pepper in my soup. Oh, before people ask, the one I just used, that peppermill I just used is the Weber Works, based out of a company based out of Japan. They make coffee equipment, and as well as this peppermill. It's a fine peppermill. It doesn't grind quite as coarse as I'd like it to sometimes, and I also find it a little slippery. Same with this one from Man Kitchen, which is also a sort of aluminum milled peppermill. Both of them are really nice and feel really nice. Both of them get a little bit slippery when your hands are even a little bit wet, but they both do a great job. This one is the sort of budget option, the one that I always use. I've been using for this one for, I don't know, a long time, 15 years maybe. I can't remember when I got this peppermill, but this is the Unicorn peppermill. Doesn't crank out quite as much pepper per turn, but still way more than your average peppermill does. And it has longevity. It's been around for a long time. I find it doesn't get sticky. It doesn't get slippery. But any one of those peppermills, people always ask me about my peppermills. Those peppermills are all great. They come in at very different price points. And you're just going to have to kind of look them up to find what those prices are. I'll leave links down below to show you. All right. I'm going to get my parsley and spinach. In this bowl. By the way, I know people also ask me this about my cutting boards. This big cutting board was actually a gift from my friend Nami from Just One Cookbook, who has a great Japanese cooking channel as well as great Japanese cookbooks and ebooks. But she gave me this cutting board. It's beautiful. It's a booze block. This one stays here basically all the time. I cut vegetables on it. If I'm going to cut meat, I put a smaller board on top, and then that smaller board goes to the sink. I'll scrape this once in a while, scrub it clean. If it really needs work, I'll take my putty knife and actually, so you can see, you can scrape off a brand new surface essentially. You could also then, if you really want to get down to it, I'll eventually take my cutting boards, dry them, and then sand them. And then you get a brand new surface to work with. And of course, you always keep them well oiled. All right, so this, you can see it's gotten nice and thick. My spinach going in. And we're not going to cook this for very long at all. We want the spinach to retain its bright green color. I want the spinach to retain its bright green color, so I'm just going to get it in there. Just let it wilt down. Okay. If you don't want to do flour in here, if you don't want to make a velouté, another great way to make a spinach soup is to just use plain chicken stock. Do everything I did. Don't use the flour, but do everything else that I just did. And then when you're blending it, or when you're heating it up here, add like a half cup or so of cooked rice. That works really nicely. If you want to keep it less starchy and more protein rich, you can use some cashews in here. That would make it nice and creamy also. And that is about all I'm going to do. Now I'm going to transfer it to my blender and blend it. Do this over the sinks in case I spill. You You could also do this with a hand blender directly in the pot, but if you want super smooth results, which is what I'm kind of going for, the blender is the way to go. Okay. I'm going to rinse out this pot because it's going right back in there when I'm done. Okay. Put a towel over the top. We're blending something hot, so we want to put a towel instead of the stopper so that it doesn't explode. It's because when you agitate a hot mixture like that, suddenly you're helping a lot of steam escape very rapidly through the agitation, and that's going to expand in here. And if you put the top on, it can cause the top to pop off. And that's also why you always want to start nice and slow and build up speed. Now just for some added smoothness, I'm going to pass this through this conical fine mesh strainer. Last time I used this thing on this channel, I called it a different term. The French term for Chinese, which is I shouldn't have called it that. It's just a habit from what they're called in restaurants, at least what they were called when I worked in restaurants. It's a sort of racist term, and I apologize for using it. I did not mean to, definitely did not mean to offend anyone, and I should have thought better about using that word before I used it. It's just a habit. But I'm going to get into the habit of calling these, Jesus, I'm going to get into the habit of calling these fine mesh conical strainers. But these strainers are sort of key to making a really smooth puree or soup. They're used all the time in restaurants, at least in sort of fancier restaurants where velvetiness and luxuriosity, luxury, it's just plain luxury, right? Yeah, where luxury is at a premium. All right. Pushing it through. There you go. Washing these, by the way, I always just spray them out from the backside like that and give them a few good whacks. That'll get most of the stuff out of there, and then you can get in there with a sponge. You always want to push it from the other side, because anything you don't want to wash them this way, because whatever didn't go through the first time is not going to go through when you're washing it from that side the second time. All right, there we are. Let me give this a taste. Probably going to need some more salt. Needs a touch more salt, and needs a little squeeze of lemon for some brightness. Okay. That is really yummy. Let me get a bowl here. You could serve this soup with croutons. You could serve it with a drizzle of creme fraiche, a drizzle of olive oil, or nothing at all, just as it is. Does that look good or what? Really good and really quick. All right. I don't know where the dogs are today, but they're not going to get this oniony soup anyway. All right, guys, gals, non-binary pals, really easy spinach soup, spinach velouté. I will see you next time. Bye-bye.